Written Scripts Bad Day, written by the Bricklayer. It was a well-known fact that one written script of Ponyville High was a complete and utter ass. No, he wasn't a donkey or a mule. He was just a jerk. A complete and utter jerk. There wasn't really a large circle of friends he had. Not that he was annoyed by this, he would rather be alone. Sadly for him, he did have a nice side often at times discussed. For example, he didn't really like seeing foals or fillies orphaned. This might have explained why he had 2 children. Generally, some of the very few ponies that could put up with him. Well, to a point anyways. Aside from those with a very large patience and/or weren't easily annoyed. And his cousin as well. She fits both of these bills, by the way. Speaking of which, little did he know, but his cousin would play a big role in the day's coming events. An alarm clock was hit, smashing it into a small pile of gears and springs, along with the 2 little clock hands.
Damn things, why do they have to be so cheery? Not exactly the kind of things your drowsy ears want to hear in the morning, thank you very much.
Script grumbled. At least it was summer now, meaning he didn't have to get up quite so early to teach. Now, you may be wondering why some pony like him would teach when he just didn't like others. Well, one of the few reasons was that he was able to put up with others. It was largely due so he could teach him a bit about culture. It made him happy. Well, that was the reason it did. He usually kept telling himself that. It wasn't like he had a heart of gold buried in him, right? Celestia above, he didn't hope so. Then he would never hear the end of it from his arch nemesis. Him? Having a heart? Pah! He already got enough mockery from Good Eats, just for being as nice as he normally was. Which, to be honest, was a lot more than you expect. Not that Script would ever admit it. He was just far too proud and stubborn as a mule. And yes, at that time, it was a comparison.
Well, suppose I better get some coffee. I'll let them sleep a bit longer. A bit of peace for at least 45 minutes or so. No chemical explosions from the basement to hurt my ears,
he decided before going downstairs. He was just about to sit down with his favorite drink, when...
Ugh.
Script groaned, both mentally and aloud. He needed his precious coffee for crying out loud.
Alright, hold your horse apples, I'm coming,
he muttered, before going to the door and opening it. An actual smile, which looked strange when he first came up to it. It was just a male mare, Derpy Hooves. For whatever reason the goddesses had decided, he couldn't bring himself to be rude, not even be snarky. Mind you, even if he had a glare on his face, it just wouldn't have been very intimidating on him, as he was currently clad in a pink fluffy bathrobe. Oh, he hoped Good Eats didn't see him like this. There went his reputation, right out the window.
So, what have you got? Got some coffee, and yeah, a bit self-explanatory there, I suppose,
he said sheepishly, with the sentence soon turning into a yawn soon after Derpy blushed. Sorry, she told him.
No need to be embarrassed on my account. Not worth your time, trust me,
he muttered. Derpy raised an eyebrow. Although, as I said, Script would never be rude to her, he actually seemed to be making an effort to be nice today. It had to have been his son and his daughter. Must have been rubbing it off him. She handed him the mail, as he looked through it quickly.
Let's see, bills, Science Monthly. Yeah, that's potions. Gossip for you, I thought I canceled it after the divorce.
Yeah, some pony did actually try to have a relationship with him. Mind you, it didn't end well. Imploded would be the best term. But, oddly enough, while he was with some pony, Script did actually become a bit nicer, even complimenting ponies on rare occasions. But soon after the marriage was over, bam, right back to square one with him. Sigmund feud could probably have himself a field day, it was often said. But, back to the present.
Huh? Raindrops? What's she...
He wondered aloud before reading the letter, his eyes widened.
Oh boy, she's coming here? Later tonight? And the guest room isn't even ready. Nowhere near ready! Ah!
Script panicked before his eyes rolled up into his head and he fainted with a loud thud. Derpy waved a hoof in front of his face before finding no reaction. She later shrugged to herself as she flew off to her next delivery. So, a bit of backstory of why Script's so panicky. To be honest, the guest bedroom in his house hadn't been cleaned in years, and was mostly just storage space for his assorted crap. Before Diamond came along, her room was used as a guest room, but now that she was here, well, things had obviously changed quite a bit. Well, long story short, after she was orphaned in a house fire, Script took her in out of a rare showing of sympathy. Derpy was more right than she realized. Being a father was softening him a bit. But first things first, he had to wake up his daughter.
Wakey wakey, eggs and bakey,
Script said in mock cheer as he entered Diamond's room, which was covered in wall-to-wall pink, with plushies everywhere.
Ugh, I can't believe I lured myself saying that cheery phrase. I don't do cheery,
he muttered in disgust. Could you have let me sleep a bit longer, could you, Daddy? And I was having such a nice dream, Diamond grumbled.
Well, if you want to waste a day away,
Script snarked. Actually, yes, Diamond replied. It is summer, after all.
Well, too bad. Got work to do, her father said in response.
Well, in that case, can I at least watch you wake up my dear brother? Diamond asked innocently. Script grinned in an almost evil manner, and Diamond rubbed her hooves together. Ah! Potion screamed and sat straight up as loud music blared through a speaker his father had brought in. Potion was a white-furred, black-maned bat pony, with 2 bubbling beakers as his cutie mark, giving a hint to his talent. Wasn't really all that brave, but that was changing as of late as his personal confidence in himself grew, with a bit of help from his father, who was teaching him to stand up against bullies. While he didn't quite have the confidence to punch one, at least he wouldn't faint on the spot anymore. He crossed his forelegs and glared after fussing with his mane to keep it down. Did you really need to do that? I could have woken up on my own, you know, he said dryly as Diamond snickered. Very funny, Dad. I'm bursting with laughter, she continued. While he'd only been Script's son for a year and a half, the 15-year-old had picked up some of his dad's sarcasm. It was hard not to, really.
Sorry,
Script said in apology without any hint of sarcasm.
Hated to do that, but...
Let me guess, something's come up, Potion asked. He knew this was it. It wasn't like this was the first time it happened, and he had been woken up early for some reason. So, he asked nervously. What is it? His father illuminated the lower portion of his face with a flashlight. Potion and Diamond rolled their eyes in unison.
It's time to clean out the guest room.
Potion swallowed.
Still can't believe you talked me into this,
Potion said, as he nervously opened the guest room door and gagged. It hadn't been cleaned in ages, and it showed. Dust was everywhere, and an odd smell like something died in there, and probably had, now that he thought about it, came from the corner of the room.
I think I might be sick. Oh, my pancakes are about to say hello. Knew I shouldn't have grabbed breakfast.
I did warn you, Script said, as he gazed around the room. He gulped, as much as Potion half an hour ago. Then he jumped into his son's arms and screamed.
Huh? Rat!
Well, it wasn't exactly a live rat. More like a dead one. Well, at least that explained the smell. You're pathetic. You know that, right? Potion muttered, with another eye roll.
We're going to need a bit of help,
Script admitted, after recovering what was left of his dignity. From who? The hazmat team? Diamond asked sarcastically. Potion snickered.
No, worse. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to call him.
His father muttered in disgust.
Oh, he's going to hold this over me forever.
Him turned out to be Good Eats, Script's arch-enemy who I had been mentioning previously. Good Eats was a coal-black earth pony stallion who run the Hayburger and had a chef's hat as his cutie mark. He and Script had been going at it for years, all starting over a simple thing as the property line. Why would he get called for help was anybody's guess, but Potion suspected it was because he was the only pony that could be acquired in such short notice, and his father secretly wanted to be friends and put away their feud but was too stubborn as a Well, like I already said, a mule. Currently, as he and Eats tossed out some of the boxes out of the window, his father talked to his cousin on the phone.
So, did you really have to come on such short notice? I haven't even prepared yet!
Script stammered in shock.
I had to get his help just to toss some stuff out. It's filthy in here, he grumbled. Damn bleeding filthy.
In the background, Good Eats muttered. And it would be less filthy if he stopped yabbering on and actually help, before tossing a box full of plates out the window. Script muttered to himself.
Those are my grandmother's. Over 100 years old they were. I'm going to kill him.
Kill who? His cousin asked.
Never you mind. None of your business anyway, Script replied. Now, as you were saying?
Sorry about all this, but think of it this way. You'll get to see me again, and quite honestly, you are the only pony I can ever think of who would take me on such short notice while my house is getting fumigated, Raindrop said over the phone in a happy tone. She was always cheerful, even if the situation didn't call for it. She liked others to see the bright side of life, although it didn't always work with his cousin, though.
But what about your friends? Can't Cloud Chaser or Blossom
Cloud's in the hospital, and Blossom's got the feather flu, she replied.
What about your boyfriend? Thunder something or other?
He asked, and when Raindrop spat, "Oh, him?" over the phone, he knew he asked a bad question. Dumped me for some other mare, can you believe it? Oh, I can't even say the word, she muttered before pepping up again. Anyways, see you when I get here, bye, she said before hanging up. What was that all about? Diamond asked as she tried on some jewelry she found in a box. Her father answered only by groaning and hitting his head against the wall and asking,
Why me?
Once he had finally joined in with the cleaning, wearing a face mask, Script was able to clear out the junk in the room. Now came the hard part, actually assembling the bed stored in the closet. Well, assembling wouldn't be the right phrase. More like arguing with Good Eats as they did so.
No, this one goes there, that one goes there,
Good Eats said as he hammered in a nail while Script read off the instructions.
Are you sure? 'Cause from what I'm seeing,
he asked, and Eats glared at him.
No, do you want to argue with some pony who's got a very hard hammer? Huh? Do ya? Oh, I'm very willing to argue. Yeah, I am. You know what? I think I'm a better cook than you, Script snapped. Oh, I doubt that very much. You see, you teach boring history, and I run a diner.
Eats sneered. Script stuck out his tongue, and that really did it. Eats muttered, "Oh, that's it," and pounced. A few moments later, after quite a lot of cursing from both of them, Potion covered his sister's young and innocent ears. Eats soon had his arch enemy in a headlock. Diamond groaned while her brother face-huffed out of embarrassment. Stallions can be such idiots sometimes, Diamond muttered in disgust. Later that night, Raindrops did show up, only to find a bruise-covered Eats and Script. She raised an eyebrow, and Diamond and Potion both shook their heads and answered in unison. Don't ask. The end. Hello, Pony. Snogwritts here. Hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, be sure to leave a like. And, if you haven't already, subscribe for more readings like this one every Saturday. Alright, that's it for me. This is Snogwritts signing out.